I may just be a little obsessed with 3D printing. What do you think?
Good morning, everybody. It's Stephen here for Bland Designs, and welcome to my weekly vlog for April the 5th, 2021, and it's vlog number 211, and it's day 390 of COVID with maybe a vaccine for me in sight. We'll see. We'll talk. Anyways, today you might notice a slight difference in the sound. Actually, I'm hoping it's a better difference because I just bought a new microphone system, and this one is completely wireless, so I can walk all around the room and you'd still be able to hear me. Not that I have plans for that, but it's nice to know. So really, this is its maiden voyage today that I'm using this microphone system, so we'll see how it goes. Okay, so let's start right off the bat with what I've been making. You'll notice there is not a quilt behind me. I haven't gotten any further on the quilt that I showed you last week, my carpenter's wheel. That one has to be quilted now and layered, and you know I procrastinate when it comes to doing that part of it, and I gotta break that cycle. But later this week I'm hoping to get my rec room all set up for some quilting on that and get it done maybe by the end of the week. I'm hoping. No promises. I've got a busy week with things to do, and we'll talk about that too later on. But what I have done is I've made one of these. This is an in the hoop embroidered applique bowl, and I think it's really quite pretty. I'm going to talk more about the process for making one of these on the Idiot Quilter tomorrow, but it turned out really nice. I actually made two of these. The first one I left out a step, and it really involved the inside of this. I forgot to add fabric to the opposite side of each one of these petals, and so it still looks okay, but it's not as nice, not as finished as this one. So I'm really happy with this, and if you're interested, this fabric, which I really love, is from a line by Cafe Facet. He's a designer. I believe he lives in England, and he's famous for his color combinations and his floral prints. And I have made several quilts using some of his fabrics before too, so I always have some of it on hand, and I really love it, and I thought for this project it would look really good. Now you're probably going to say, what am I going to do with it? I don't know. I was thinking, you throw a napkin in it, you put your buns, your rolls, your bread, whatever in it, and that would work really well. And I think that's what I may do with it. Or you could put some, you know, at Christmas time, you actually can make one of these out of Christmas fabric. That would look really nice, and get some, you know, cheap plastic ornaments, balls or something, and fill it up with the balls. That would look really nice. Put that in my note of things to do for this Christmas. Anyways, I'm really happy with the way it turned out. I think it's really pretty. Okay, so speaking of things to decorate your home, today's YouTube channel of the week is called Dave's Wreaths and Things. And Dave lives in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, so he's not far from me. Never met the man, but he is part of that series that I had been following, the Men Crafters Hop, and he's the next one in this group that I am featuring over the next little while. So check out Dave's Wreaths and Things.
This week's YouTube channel of the week is one in a series that I'm doing on male crafters, and this is called Dave's Wreaths and Things. And yes, it's everything you ever want to know about making wreaths. Now, he does them on a budget. He buys a lot of his supplies from the Dollar Tree, and there's really some neat ideas. He looks at doing things from, say, old pages from a notebook, florals from, you know, various sources. Also, they're seasonal. So what he has created are wreaths that can be, you know, if you like changing things out on your front door of your house, or as centerpieces, depending on Christmas or Thanksgiving or Easter, whatever, or just spring, fall, summer, winter. He has lots of ideas for these. I find it very interesting, although I am not really into wreath making, but many of the things that he shows you could transfer to other elements other DIY type things, as I said, like centerpieces or wall hangings or just general home decor. So if you want something a little different and you want to see wreaths made from a male's perspective, then check out Dave's Wreaths and Things.
You'll find the link for Dave's Wreaths and Things in the show notes below, and you'll also find the link for Stephen and Walter Live this past week. And I apologize, I just discovered this morning. You know, many of you probably know that every week on Sunday morning I put up a reminder, a short little reminder on my YouTube channel as to, you know, when Stephen and Walter Live will be on the air. Well, we're always on at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on a Sunday afternoon. For some reason, it came out of my mouth as 1 p.m. and I didn't realize that until one of my regular subscribers, hi Jeannie, sent me a message this morning and said, you know, that I had said 1 p.m. And so she missed it, and I'm sorry for that, Jeannie. And I sent you off an email about that. Yeah, I'm losing it. That's got to be it. I am losing it. And actually, just as a side note on that, and to be a little bit more serious here about losing it, yeah, I do feel like I'm losing it some days. I don't know if that's my age. I'm not 64 yet. I will be this year, but I'm not yet. And 64 is not old. It does worry me because my father suffered from Parkinson's and dementia. Or is it what they call situational dementia, where, you know, because you're not getting a lot of stimulus, you know, things just get mixed up. And I mean, that's probably a lot of us are in that boat right now, right? Because, you know, we've been shut up for over a year with COVID, so that's got to have an effect. COVID fatigue, I would call it. And that's not original to me. I heard that on something. And so I don't know what it is. Or is it because I'm a retired person and one day seems to run into the next? I don't know. Well, anyways, or, you know, I'm just losing it. One way or the other. But anyways, so I apologize for anybody else who got caught up in that. But of course, you can watch the re-recording. I'm not that pleased with this last episode of Stephen and Walter Live, to be quite honest. We're really running out of stuff to talk about. Walter and I talked about it afterwards. I mean, one, our broadcast yesterday was about a half hour shorter than it usually is because we just ran out of stuff to talk about. You know, we've been trying, and it's very difficult to stay away from talking about anything related to COVID because we're all, like I said, we have COVID fatigue. Yes, it's uppermost in our minds, but, and I'm going to do a little rant later on today about COVID again, but it's just getting old, you know? It's time for something new. But to be honest, because we're not traveling, because we're not really going out anywhere except to get groceries and fabric, there is nothing really exciting in our lives to tell you about. Well, yes, I have my projects and things, and I talk about those, but you know, I talk about more of those on this vlog, and I talk more about my sewing on the Idiot Quilter vlog. And now that we've got the So Chatty, we're talking about more sewing machine related things. So on Stephen and Walter Live, we just want it to be a more general, informal chit chat, but we've got nothing to talk about. So here's what I'm asking. What do you want us to talk about? Throw those topics out at us. They don't have to be earth-shattering. They could be in the form of a question, something about us, something about our past, something about our plans, something, anything, something about you, whatever. Just anything but COVID, okay? Let's just stay away from COVID now, because we're just exhausted, all of us, you know, us, you, everybody, the world. So anyways, I wasn't pleased with yesterday's Stephen and Walter Live, and I am sorry for that. If you came and were expecting more, and I'm hoping for those people who might have been the first time, please go back and watch some of our past episodes. Some of them get a little bit real, like, what do you want to call, ranty or something about all kinds of things. But, you know, don't judge us by this one, please. Okay, and also in the show notes is the latest episode of the Idiot Quilter, latest episode of So Chatty. On So Chatty Friday, we talked about Walter's sewing machine, the 6700P, and gave a fairly thorough review about that machine. And this week on So Chatty, which will be towards the end of the week, hopefully, we'll be talking about my main machine, which is the Continental M7 by Janome. And there is a link to the Art Journal group meeting that we had on Sunday. We always do that the first Sunday of every month. And I post that, as you know, because it's filled with all kinds of really creative ideas that I think you'll find inspiring. So, you know, it's in a format of a Zoom meeting, but do check it out if you're a crafty person. Okay, so that takes me to what's pissing me off this week. Unfortunately, it has to do with COVID. And, oops, okay, dribble. Geez, I'm losing it, and now I can't keep things in my mouth. It's time for the home. So, what's pissing me off a little bit is, well, it's kind of a mixed bag here. It's, you know, it's hopeful on the one hand, and it's disillusioning on the other. And that, of course, is the vaccine. Now, I think last week I mentioned that we had been a forgotten group, it seemed, between 60 and 65. As far as getting the vaccine is concerned. Well, after I said that, guess what the Ontario government said? They've got this big shipment coming this week of vaccines, the AstraZeneca, and they are distributing them to pharmacies around Ontario. So go online, check out your local pharmacy, see when they're getting the vaccine, and then you can book an appointment for it. Makes it sound very hopeful, doesn't it? Well, here's the reality of it. So Walter spent a few hours on last week checking at the pharmacies in our area. Yeah, none of them have the vaccine yet. They're all saying, well, you know, maybe by the end of this week, now that we're into, or something like that, but it's very vague. And you had to register online for it. So you had to do a questionnaire thing and blah, 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 blah. And so we did. Well, we didn't stop at one pharmacy. I think we are registered at 4 different pharmacies. I think we went to Lowe's, Rexall, Shoppers Drug Mart, and Costco, even Costco's pharmacy. You know, we're playing the odds game because, after all, other people are going out of our area to get their shot, which I said last week I thought was a little bit selfish to do that. So I guess we're being selfish now. But the thing is, when one of them calls, whichever one is first, we will cancel out of the other 3. So we're not going to be taking up a spot for somebody else, okay? So now we sit and wait and see when we get the call. And apparently we have 24 hours to firm up the appointment or whatever, or make the appointment. I'm not sure how this works either. And away we go. Probably to make the appointment, I guess, because on this thing we filled out online, of course, we couldn't make a day and a time because they didn't have the vaccine yet and didn't know either. So anyways, I guess there's hope on the horizon that we'll get at least the first shot, maybe sooner than I thought. I pretty much figured that we wouldn't get that shot until September. And that could still be the case because, and this is the negative side of all of this, and what I'm ranting about, our government, the Ontario government, led by Doug Ford and the Conservatives, have botched this since day one. They have just screwed the whole thing over with us. They keep changing the rules. We're in lockdown right now. We are in lockdown for a month. The whole month of April, we're in lockdown. Well, yeah, he put that in place on Saturday. Saturday morning at 12:01 a.m. Well, what was Friday? This was Easter weekend. Friday was Good Friday. Okay? So in normal times anyways, a lot of places are shut down for Good Friday because I believe it's still listed in our country as a statutory holiday. So unless you're an absolute essential store, you have to shut down. It's a holiday. Well, I'm not sure if that made any difference with the lockdown restrictions, but you know, Easter weekend is traditionally when families get together. And even though there's COVID, we know people are going to get together. And it's being strongly suggested, recommended, warned, you should not get together. Only with the people who live in your household. That's it, not anybody else. Okay, we have heard this. How many times? This is what, our third full lockdown in Ontario? I think it's the third one in the last year. And people are just tired, as I said before, COVID fatigue. And people are ignoring the government's suggestions. But the government themselves are putting in, like, doing too much, too little, too late, or something like that, whatever way you want to look at it. They're not shutting down the schools. Well, the schools are going back in. They have the Easter weekend, as they always traditionally do, so they get Good Friday and Easter Monday. Great. Go to school for 4 days, and then they have March break, which is in April this year, because in the wisdom of the government, they thought, which I've never figured this out, why, they should move it into April. Fine. Then at one point they were talking about whether or not they should even have it. Well, the teachers need a rest. Okay. This has been probably the hardest year. I'm so glad I don't teach anymore. This would be the hardest year, I'm sure, of my teaching life if I was a teacher. So yeah, they need a rest. Okay. It's unfortunate that they can't go anywhere like in the good old days, to get away from it all. But, so yeah, and the kids need a rest too. But here's the problem. They haven't said for sure, but it sounds like they're going to still leave the schools open after this break. And we're in the middle of a lockdown when they do that. It would make much more sense to keep the little buggers home, the little germ bags. You've heard me talk about that before. And let the parents deal with it. And I think that I can't see any reason why they've been pushing this agenda of keeping the schools open. We have had many schools closed in the last month because they're open, because the kids have COVID. They're carriers. They're asymptomatic. They're whatever, and they're taking it back to their family. And the kids are not practicing social distancing. Only maybe in a classroom, but not outside the class, not when they have a break, recess, whatever. They're all congregating. How do I know this? I've driven by a couple of elementary schools and seen it happening. And if it's happening in the elementary schools, it's happening in the high schools too. Yeah, because, kids, they're kids. Don't need to say any more, they're kids. So, here we go. So what's happening? Well, right now our cases are up, well over 3,000 a day. We were, back in about the middle of March, we were creeping up, but we were down to about 1,200 a day or something like that. Now we're doubled, more than doubled. And do you think that's going to go down after this long weekend? No, because you know what people were doing? They were congregating. We drove past on Saturday the Oshawa Shopping Center, huge shopping center. We decided we need to get out of the house. We'll go for a drive. Excuse me. We didn't stop anywhere. We took a swing around the new nursing home my mother's going to be moved into in probably the end of April. And I have to clear my throat. Just give me a second. Got a frog in there or something, or maybe one of the bunnies from Easter crawled down it. I don't know. Anyways, we drove. So we were out driving around but not stopping anywhere. We drove past the Oshawa Shopping Center. My God, it looked like it was business as usual. The parking lot was jam full of cars. It's a shopping center, an indoor shopping center. It doesn't matter whether stores are only letting so many people in. See, stores can still stay open, but they can only allow 50% of their capacity in. Well, how do they determine 50% capacity? Now, every store in Ontario has a little sign that they have to have put in by the fire departments saying, this is how many people maximum can be in this space. So I guess you divide it by 2. Is there somebody at the door counting? I have been to some places back earlier in this whole COVID thing that were actually controlling how many people went into a store. Costco does this. You see the big lineup every time you drive past Costco. Except we have been in that lineup for Costco, and you're not standing in line very long. You're going in, and once you're in there, it's all hell breaks loose. It's just like it was normal. People are not obeying the little arrows. There's somebody there with a stupid little cart with this big sign on it. I have no idea what the purpose of that is. It has 2 arrows, and in between it says 2 meters. Yeah, that works. Not. So, you know, what are you going to do? The government doesn't enforce this stuff. People are COVID tired. The government should have put in this lockdown weeks ago to get a hold of it. Our ICUs are becoming full, moving to capacity. The doctors have written an open letter to the government saying what their concerns are very clearly. The government keeps saying that they're listening to the health professionals, but they're not. I have no idea what the government's agenda is, but it's not an agenda that's helping with this situation. And I can tell you this, I will remember this. And when election time comes up, they're not getting my vote. No. And I'll certainly be doing an active job of campaigning against the conservative government led by Doug Ford. And, well, I call them the three ugly blisters. There's Doug Ford, the premier. Then there's his Minister of Health, Christine Elliott. She's just a bitch. And then you have this moron who's head of education, Lecce, and he's just a piece of crap. He is such a wimp. He doesn't have a clue what he's doing either. So you got the three ugly blisters running our province, Ontario, and they're running us into the ground and they're killing us. It's simple as that, really, out of it all. So, yeah, I guess my hope is now that maybe I will get the vaccine a little earlier, but I'm not holding my breath because I have a feeling there's going to be another, say the least, wrinkle put into the government's plans, and they'll blame it on, and what the thing is the government does is they never take any ownership or accountability for this. They blame it all on our federal government. So there we are. Great leadership, eh? Okay, let's move on away from COVID, shall we? So I just said I've got a new toy. I have this new wireless microphone. So right now, one end of it is plugged into my iPad and the other end is here, dangling. Look, Mom, no strings. So I'm hoping this works out. It didn't cost a lot of money. It was about $49 on Amazon. It's made in China, but I've been testing it out and I'm hoping it'll give me a little better sound. And I'm moving like this because guess what? The sun is coming through. So, yeah, I have a nice heavenly glow on this side. All right, so that's the only thing new I bought this week. I do have some fabric on order, and really exciting, I have some of my own fabric, which I think I mentioned last week, that I had designed some time ago, and I've ordered it from Spoonflower. I'm out of it, and I thought I should get some more of it, and when it comes in, I'll show it to you then. Okay, so that takes us to stories about my grandmother. Okay, I call this the Cabinet of Horrors. My grandparents, when they were much younger, before I was ever on the scene, used to do, well, they liked to hunt. I'm not sure how extensive their hunting was, but they liked to hunt, they liked to fish. They were kind of outdoorsy people at that time. I don't ever remember them being that way when I came on the scene. Although my grandfather did go duck hunting every year, and my dad went duck hunting with him. Anyways, they also like to do taxidermy. So they stuffed things. Now, I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I have an aversion to any dead thing that's propped up in someone's house that's been stuffed. I don't like it. I'm kind of against hunting. For a variety of reasons, and also involves my feelings about having guns and things like that. And so this whole thing disturbs me about that. But nevertheless, when I was a little kid, my grandparents had all the things that they had killed and stuffed on display in a cabinet that sat in a room off from their living room in their house. It was actually an area that was sort of like an enclosed porch. The house they lived in is now well over 100 years old, but when the house was designed, the front door of the house was, like their house was sort of on top of a hill, and there was terraced lawns in the front of the house. I think in its day, it was very grand looking. Now, this was not a mansion or anything like that, but just the way it was situated, I think it made it look very grand. And I do remember as a little kid, there was a series of stone stairs that went all the way down these two tiered areas of hills down to the street below. Over the years, my grandmother, eventually they were crumbling in that she had them removed and all filled in with sod, and they didn't use what was considered the front door of the house. They used a side door on the house, and that was the door that came off of the driveway, and it was on a fairly large piece of property too, so the house was set back a ways from the street, and it was on a corner. Anyways, I digress. So anyways, they had this room, okay, and it was an enclosed porch area. And that's where this cabinet sat. And in it were all these eyes staring at you. And it just gave me the bejesus as a kid. I hated it. I hated it so much to this day, I can't tell you exactly what was in there because I would not stand there and look at it for very long. Even as an adult, to see something that is stuffed and hanging on somebody's wall or in a cabinet, I cringe at the thought. I have been to natural history museums, and you walk in and there'd be a huge room with all kinds of stuffed specimens. That gives me the willies. I just don't like it. So, anyways, they had this cabinet of horrors. And this is a shorter story about my grandmother, but that was the cabinet where, if you remember my story about Poonie on a pillow, that's where Poonie lived after she died for quite a while too. Now, I'm not exactly sure what happened to all of those stuffed animals. And when I say animals, it wasn't, she had birds, there was owls, there were small birds, there were squirrels, there was other vermin stuffed in there. I don't know, they seem to like to stuff everything, so I guess it shouldn't have been any shock that my grandmother stuffed her dog either. But just bizarre and scary, okay? So I don't know what happened to all those things after they passed away and my parents went in and cleaned out their house. I don't know if my father dug a big hole and buried them, or in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about this friend of my grandparents who loved to do taxidermy, and he's the man I think she had stuff her Chihuahua, Poonie, as well. And my dad may have given them all to him, because he kind of liked to collect those kind of things. Ooh. In fact, just another aside here about this guy, close friend of my grandparents, he liked to experiment in taxidermy. He'd like to, I guess we might call it now, Frankenstein things. Like, I remember as a kid, he used to stuff frogs. Yes, frogs, big frogs, bullfrogs. And he'd pose them in comical situations, like a stuffed frog playing a guitar, another one playing golf, another one's a baseball player, something like that. They were quite the novelty item. Well, it was the early 70s at that point, and I think I had one of those. I think my father got one from him of a frog. I think he was playing a guitar or banjo or something. And that sat on some shelves in my parents' house for years. Yeah, it didn't give me as much the creeps as other things did, but nevertheless, he did do one called a kitty chuck. This was a big joke. Now, this is very disturbing, okay? This story isn't as pleasant as some of the other stories about my grandparents or related to them. The kitty chuck was the bottom half of a groundhog and the head of a cat put together, and it's sitting up and it's smoking a cigarette. And people, well, my family, thought that was hilarious. It's so wrong on so many levels. That's Frankensteining. That's what I call Frankensteining. Also, it was the head of a cat. I'd like to know where the man got the cat's head. Just saying. Ooh. I got a chill up my back just talking about it. So let's move off of that. Anyways, they went, they were gone. Glad I didn't inherit them. Well, I wouldn't have taken them, that's for darn sure. I mean, I inherited a few other things from my grandparents, but I did not get those, and that's just fine by me. So, why am I telling you this story? Because this one's a little weird. Well, My grandmother was a little weird. Okay, I know, you'll figure I'm related, so go figure, right? But I mean, she did lots of things in her life. She dabbled in all kinds of things. I've told you about her carpentry work. I told you about her hairdressing. I've told you about her cooking. I am going to talk to you at one point about her painting as well. But this was another craft that she, I guess at one point in her life, enjoyed doing. So anyways, that's the Cabinet of Horrors. Still gives me nightmares to this day. It has made me unable to go to natural history museums to look at the exhibits because of it. So never, ever underestimate the influence grandparents have over their grandchildren. Moral of the story, I guess. Okay, so moving on, let's talk about 3D printing. And I keep moving this way so that the sun is, I'm just going to move this a little bit around this way. This might be better, okay? Talk fast, sun will catch up. Okay, so what have I been making? Well, you saw this in the teaser. You gotta have a Godzilla, for goodness sakes. And I noticed on Netflix or something, a movie, Godzilla meets King Kong or something, has just come out, a new version of it. Now, am I in love with Japanese monster movies? Not really. I never watched them as a kid. Although, okay, I'll tell you another little story here why Godzilla appeals to me. This is kind of weird, and you may have seen this movie. When I was in high school, I had a really weird history teacher at one point, and he loved to show us like weird things. And so he showed us this movie. It was a short little animated movie, but before he showed it to us, he spent about 2 weeks building up to the day we were going to see this movie, telling us this was the best movie that had ever been made in history of filmmaking. So we were all excited. I think I was in grade 12 at the time. And so the day came, he's got the movie. Of course, in those days it was 16 millimeter, the big reel projectors and the whole bit. He gets it all up and turns it on. It's a little black and white movie. And there's a little deer. It's Bambi, basically like Bambi. And there's this lovely music playing in the background, very springy type music. It was a classical piece, a very famous one. Couldn't tell you what the name of it is now, but you've heard it. You'd know it as soon as you heard it. Anyways, the little deer is peacefully scratching in the grass and bending down and having a little munch and scratching in the grass. And this goes on for a good 3-4 minutes or so. And you're waiting to see where's this leading to? So Bambi's there munching on the grass, and suddenly this giant scaly foot drops from the top of the screen and flattens Bambi. Just splats Bambi right out. Of course, it's the foot of Godzilla. And then you see the title and the credits, and it's called Godzilla Meets Bambi. And then for the next 5 minutes, there's nothing but credits rolling by your screen about the production company and the director, and they're all the same name. And I've always remembered that, and I thought it was really, really funny. I still do. I'm laughing now, even although it's like 40 years later, kind of a thing. And I still think it's hilarious with it. It's my weird sense of humor. Probably got this sense of humor because there was a Cabinet of Horrors in my grandparents' place, but who knows? And a stuffed chihuahua. I'm warped. But anyways, so I've always had a thing sort of about Godzilla. So I had to make this. Now, the Shakespeare one I showed you that I made in a 3D printer, and I told you that took over 60 hours? Well, guess what? This one was close. It didn't quite take 60 hours, but it took 55, something like that, to print. So for about 2.5 days, day and night, this thing was printing, and it came out great. And it's all got little scales and everything. So yeah, I'm really happy with this. I think it's really cool. So it sits on my 3D shelves, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. I also made, only because, now I'm not a Star Wars fan. I don't hate Star Wars, I just don't get into it like a lot of people do. So I decided, yes, I guess I have to make one. I made a baby Yoda. There he is, little baby Yoda. Everybody thinks he's so cute. I don't know. He looks like a little man all wrinkled up with his legs cut off. But anyways, I made one. And he turned out pretty good. This one only took about 2 hours to print out, and I wasn't sure about his ears because there's things called supports, and when things go out like this, you can have a problem and you need to put in supports. But it said on the one I downloaded it didn't need any supports, and they were right, it didn't. So I decided to blow him up. So I blew him up another 150% bigger, and here he is, the big baby Yoda. Yeah, it's fun, so I've got one. I think everybody with a 3D printer does a Baby Yoda at some point in time, so I'm part of the crowd. And the other thing, I just took it off the printer this morning. This took about 17 hours to print. There are some sites for 3D printing that are museums that have scanned some of their more famous collections, 3D scanned them, and have made them available for 3D printing. And this is one. This is, I'm not sure what museum it comes from, but it's one that has Egyptian antiquities in it. And this is a statue of a cat that was found in a pharaoh's tomb. Can't tell you which one or anything like that. If you look at it closely on the chest, there are some hieroglyphics as well. And I decided to print him out of this gray, and he came out very shiny and very smooth. So I think that's a really good print. And I might go back to these. There's other museum pieces as well that have been 3D scanned that you can print. So I may go back and get some more of them. Now, the other thing is somebody created a 3D print of, or a model. It's what they call the models. It's a joke one. You know, that ship that got stuck in the Suez Canal? Well, it's hilarious. This one shows the ship. The guy has spent some time designing it because he's got like water and everything. The ship's in the water. It's stuck between two points of land, and there's all these little boats around it, all crowded around. Well, the little boats are what we call benchies. Benchies, let me grab one. This is a benchie. See that? If I had a wired microphone, I wouldn't have been able to do that. Now, if I get blinds on my windows, that would help. This is a benchie. This is one of the first things you print on a 3D printer when you first get it. The idea is you print this and it does put your printer through all the things your printer is supposed to be able to do, and then you can fine tune your printer so it prints properly. He has shrunk these down and put these around like the ships that were, you know, trapped with the big ship in the Suez Canal around it. And it's hilarious. It is a piece of art, 3D modeled, that is historically significant and funny. So he's put it up, and I've downloaded it, and I'm going to make it. I'm going to probably start the printing that today. Now, I am thinking I'm going to print it out first the way he's done it. It'll all be in one color. But I am thinking, I think he broke it up into component parts as well, which you would have to glue together later. But that way I could do them in different colors too, the little ships and things. But I'm going to print it in one color first to see how it prints, and then go from there. But I think it's hilarious. So you'll get the joke when I show it to you. Okay. So what I'm going to do before I continue here is, the sun is bothering me. I need to rotate. So I'll be back in just a second. And that takes us to the next part in my Rose Bowl album that I combine mixed media and 3D printing with. And here's the second part.
Okay, so I wasn't really happy with the way these roses came out, what I was trying to do with the paint, and I'm no artist, so if I'd been an artist I would have been able to have done it, but I'm not. So I'm going to try an experiment. This could be a complete disaster. This might work. I have no idea, but nothing ventured, nothing gained. And I've mixed up some paints with some pouring medium, and yes, I'm going to attempt to do some paint pouring on these flowers. Now, these little ones that are here, I've got a little button on top of them that I put down with a sticky dot to just make, my theory is, and this is my theory, so we'll see, that the paint on these will just flow over top and down the sides, and it won't go inside, or very much of it will go inside the actual little flower bud. And then afterwards I can just pull, I hope, these little buttons off. Here I had a hole in this one, and I didn't really want the paint to go down the hole, so I've put a little sticky dot over top of that, and we'll see what happens. Like I said, this could be a complete disaster, especially with the sizes that I have here. I don't know how this is going to work. I'm going to try it on the big one first to give me an idea. I mean, worst case scenario is I need to reprint some of these flowers, or I'll do something else. I don't know. We'll see. So I've got a little cup here to add some colors to it. So I think I'm going to start with, I got some white here. I'm just going to pour a little white in first. Get a little bit more. The other thing I noticed is that I'm running out of liquid paints because I haven't used them for a while. And when I say running out, I mean they're drying up. So I've had to use some tube acrylic paints, which are a little chunkier. I probably should be wearing gloves for this, but I am not. I'm going to try a little white with yellow and a little bit of red. Okay. Let's see what happens here. Here goes nothing. Oh, there went a lump. There's another lump. Now, you know, my first impression is not bad. Not bad. So I think I'm going to mix up a little bit more. I didn't have very much of that. I think I'm going to add a little bit more pouring medium, if I have any. I think my pouring medium is pretty much run out. Put this in shot. Okay, I think I have another bottle of pouring medium somewhere, so I'll be back in a second while I locate. Okay, I found some more pouring medium, and I'm liking what's happening here on the rose, except that there are some little specks on here that have come out from the paint that didn't dissolve, but I'm not minding that. It kind of gives it an interesting texture, and I may just leave that one just as it is, and I'm just going to pour. Now I'm going to try another experiment here. I think I'm just going to pour a little bit of white on this one just to get it started. Then a little bit of orange. No, I think I'm better off if I mix them up in a cup, the colors. So let's get some yellow in here. A little yellow. Let's put in a little blue on top of that. A little more orange. Some white. And what the hell? Put some red in too. Okay. Now let's see what happens. Actually, I'm kind of liking this. Need more yellow. I'm going to add a little bit of pouring medium to this too, just to make it a little bit more runny. Probably shouldn't have done it once in this cup. Ooh, this is kind of interesting. Okay, let's see what we get here. I'm experimenting, people. Oops. Might have drowned that one. Well, if anything, it's kind of fun. Okay, let's carry on here. I'm running out of my colors. For some reason, I got my cups mixed up too. I guess this was my pouring cup. So, white. I think we need to lighten things up here maybe. Let's just try a little yellow. Just that, white and yellow. Let's see what we get. They're definitely different, but I need a little bit more white on these ones. The white's definitely lumpy. Very lumpy. Okay. Now, let's play dangerous with the big one. Let's put a little blue. And I'm kind of out of yellow, so I'm going to need to find some more paint, because this is taking a lot more paint than I expected. But, let's see. Oh, I have some yellow here. These paints have not been used in a while. This is just cheap craft paint. If I can get it out of the bottle. You know, I think I'm going to have to find some fresher paints because I think these are dried up. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to continue to experiment, and I'll be back in a sec. Okay, so I think I've put enough paint on all these flowers, and I went around with them and just put little dabs of individual colors along them as well to sort of, you know, let them blend a little bit more. Of course, these will keep moving for a little while until, you know, it sets up. But I've got this part that I was going to put inside the bowl to lift the flowers up, and I had painted it this coppery color, but I'm thinking now I should do it in the same colors as these flowers. And so I'm just going to, I mixed up some here, and I'm just going to pour it on. Let it do its thing. That's pretty. There's a big lump. Okay, that lump came off. So I'm just going to let it ooze away here on its own. And yeah, I'm not going to do much more to that. I was thinking I should add some yellow, but I'm out of yellow and I don't want to mix up any more. So I'm just going to let all of this mess sit here. It'll have to sit for overnight at least, and come back to it and see how it all worked out at that point. But right now, I'm liking this better than I liked what I did with it before. So we'll see. So I had a little bit of paint left over in each of the cups, so I poured them all into one cup, and I've got this 3D printed box that I made and have no use for. So I thought, let's decorate it. Ooh, some little lumpies in there. I really should have wore gloves.
Let's take a, like I said, I should have wore gloves. Let's take a little stick to that and see if we can coax it around the sides that didn't get any. This is for no reason except to be messy. That's all this is. Just to be messy. Because sometimes you just feel like you need to make a mess, right? Okay. I think it's time to stop playing. Yeah. Because I'm very, very sticky now. And I wonder if I should run a little heat over this in the form of the heat gun. Let me grab it. Why? Because I can, and I'm a firebug, so I got out my torch. There we go. This just gets rid of some air bubbles, but you know, at this point, I don't think it matters. Okay, how do I turn it off? There we go. Okay, that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to clean up now, and I'll come back tomorrow and look at what has happened. So I will continue that process next week in part 3. So events in the past week. My mom, she's okay, but discovered something that I did not know, which there's not much I can do about it. I got a call earlier in the week. There's some forms that need to be filled out for the move from the old nursing home into the new one. And my mother is listed as being able to make her own decisions, which she can, but usually my mother has me make the decisions because I have power of attorney. But when it comes to filling out forms and things, legally, she can fill out her own things, but they help her at the nursing home. So they have these forms that need to be filled out, and they called me and said that they were going to help her fill them out. In fact, they just needed her to sign something, and they said, you know, she has a difficulty signing her own name these days because of her arthritis in her hands. But, you know, as long as she made a mark, that was okay because they're witnessing it and everything like that. And I said, okay, great, fine. So I'm talking to my mom. I noticed that she had something in one of her hands, and it looked like a cloth or something, and she's clutching it. And I said, Mom, what are you hanging on to? And she says, oh, she called it a rolled up tensor bandage. Maybe it was. I couldn't really tell in the FaceTime video. She said, oh yeah, I've just got my hand on that. And I said, well, why? Did you hurt your hand? She says, no, I just can't open it, and this helps with that. And I said, why can't you open it? She says, it's arthritis. My mother has very severe arthritis in her hands. Now, I knew she had some problems with her hands, but I didn't realize how bad the arthritis really was. So I talked to her about it, and I asked her, do you have pain? She says, oh yeah, with it. She says, well, only when, I says, the doctor come in and looked at it. Well, yeah, they have, and he tries to straighten it out. And she says, boy, that really hurts when he tries to straighten out my fingers and stuff. And I thought, well, geez, Mom, you know, I feel bad because what can I do about it? Arthritis is arthritis. There's no cure for it, and they're doing what they can for her with this. But now that explains a lot of things to me before, which also makes me feel bad. Why she's not answering her telephone. Why she has trouble changing the channels on her TV set. It's because of the arthritis. She can't grip these things. And I feel horrible about it. I thought she just wasn't answering the phone because, well, actually part of it is just, it's her mood. But, you know, the poor lady can't really use her hands. Which brings up the question is, how is she managing to eat? I think one hand is worse than the other, so, and I know they're assisting her with all of that, but this just opened up a whole bunch of new things for me, and because I haven't been able to physically visit my mother in the past year, this is stuff I didn't know, and my mother didn't tell me about it. You know, my mother will complain about a lot of things, but there are some things she won't tell you, and a lot of those have to do with her own personal health. And I need to question her more about those kind of things. But anyways, that explains why she can't answer the phone. Or when she does answer the phone, why she'll sometimes hang up on you. I know that's an accident, but that's why, because her fingers aren't working properly because of the arthritis. So that presents me with a problem. I don't know when I will actually be able to resume my regular weekly visits to my mother in person. I'm hoping they will maintain the FaceTime for a little bit longer. I imagine they'll maintain doing that until, you know, when everything can open up again and we can actually go and physically visit. But I'm thinking down the road in the future too. I really like doing the FaceTime with my mother because right now she lives 25 minutes away, have to drive there, and when we could, of course, and go in and see her. And, you know, to be honest, it's just a little bit more convenient to do it by FaceTime. So I'm hoping that they will continue FaceTime right into like forever kind of a thing. Because there may be a week when I can't get in to see her, but I could call her on FaceTime, set up the appointment and everything like that. Like my idea is thinking, you know, 1 week on FaceTime, 1 week physical visit, or whatever kind of a thing. But yeah, that was kind of a revelation to me about this arthritis. And my mother, she says, you know, she inherited it from her grandmother and her cousins all had it and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, oh, great, it's inheritable. And you know, when I start grabbing my hands like this going, you know, if I couldn't use my hands or anything, it means I couldn't sew and stuff. And so I don't know. It's kind of scary. Anyways, besides the arthritis, though, she seemed in fairly good spirits and everything when I talked to her last week, so that's a good thing. Okay, so we had the Art Journal group monthly meeting, as I mentioned before, because I put a link to it in, and lots of interesting ideas there, so you may want to check that out. And I do not have a Wally Cooks this week, sorry. Did he not cook this week? Well, yes and no. He did cook, but it wasn't anything really new and exciting. It was mostly stuff that was pre-made that he heated up. But we did have souvlaki the other night. Now, these were souvlakis, pre-made souvlakis that we bought at a local sort of butcher meat shop called Holenda's. And they were excellent. They were really, really good. But he did do some Greek-style potatoes with them. Now, I make Greek-style potatoes too. But damn it all, his are better than mine. I said to him, what recipe did you use? Thought he might have used my recipe. No, he went online, found one. Well, it had all the same ingredients, except it was the way you put the ingredients in. And you know, I've never been able to recreate the kind of Greek-style potatoes that you get in a Greek restaurant. And that's what I've always tried to create. Bingo, he did it. Tasted exactly like the Greek-style potatoes in a restaurant. So, yeah, another thing scratch off my list. Now, today is Easter Monday, so I will hope I can get some video. We're going to do sort of our Easter dinner. We have a ham, a small ham, and I'm going to do what I call Queen Anne potatoes. Don't ask me why they're called that or why I call them that. They're just basically slices of potato covered in melted butter and some cheese, and I add a little bit of seasoning to it and whatnot and bake them in the oven. They're extremely rich and very decadent. They're not a scallop potato, although in some ways they're prepared like a scallop potato. So we're doing that and probably some cauliflower or whatever. But the exciting part of it, and I can't wait, he made pie dough yesterday. He's going to make a pie. Walter makes the best pies ever. Okay, and he breaks all the rules about making pastry, and it comes out beautiful. So I will definitely make sure that I take some video of that so you can see this on Wally Cooks next week. Okay, so what's coming up? We do have, it's the first Wednesday of the month, so it's Craft and Chat time. And that's this Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We go from 1 till 4. Everybody is welcome. The link is in the show notes below. The link is also in Stephen and Walter Live, and it will be in the Idiot Quilter, so lots of places to find it. You don't need to register for it. You don't need to tell me if you're coming or not. You just show up whenever you want to. It's open. If you can't make it at 1, but you can make it at 1:30 or 2, whatever, you can pop in then. You don't have to stay for the whole thing. We're just getting together, and we're working on whatever we want to work on in a nice, friendly, social, no drama environment. We do not discuss COVID or anything like that. And we're slowly getting a few more people each month. We're not a huge group. I have some that have become regulars in there as well. And it's just a time where you can relax, work on something that makes you really happy to work on. And, you know, for a few hours, just have a good time. So everybody is welcome. If you're a quilter, a textile fiber artist, a paper crafter, a scrapbooker, a crocheter, a knitter, a sewer, mixed media, art journaling, whatever floats your boat. It's open to all for it. So I hope you, if you're free, you can join us. I know some of you are working, so, you know, you can't make it. I get it. And just as an aside, I am thinking of doing possibly a sew day on a weekend, but probably not until into May with it. There'll be lots of warning about it beforehand, but it'll be sort of a mini retreat. It'll be only for one day. It'll only be for maybe 6 hours, something like that. You know, we might start at 10 o'clock in the morning and go to 4 in the afternoon on a Saturday as well. And it'll be just like the Craft and Chat. Just, you know, you don't have to pre-register anything. Just drop in, do your thing. I don't know. That's out there as an idea. But I just thought I'd throw it out there now. If you do have an interest in something like that, yeah, let me know in the show notes below. Make a comment about it, because that'll give me an idea whether or not there is an interest for something like that. So anyways, that's all that's coming up this week. I have to house clean. I do it once a month. I hate doing it, but I don't have a cleaning lady anymore, so got to do it myself. Once I get into it, I'm not too bad, but that's what's next on today's agenda once I get this compiled and up. So yeah. Okay, so that's it for me this week. So I hope you have a good week, and I hope to see you on Craft and Chat if you're able. And yeah, we'll see you next week. Have a good one. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay in. You know the drill. Bye for now.